In this video, I'll show you how to create and manage axis grids for an industrial-type steel building in ideCAD Structural. It's important to note that the axis command works exactly the same in architectural, reinforced concrete, and structural steel projects, so once you master it, you can apply it across all disciplines in ideCAD. You'll learn how to use the axis command with different placement methods, including offset spacing, coordinate entry, and free angle mode. I'll walk you through adjusting axis properties like delta values, label orientation, units, and colors. We'll use the array command to place multiple axes quickly, and I'll also show you how to duplicate axes with custom spacing using the clone tool. To keep your layout organized, we'll activate contour lines and make sure your drawing stays clean. Finally, I'll demonstrate how to automatically label all your axes using smart naming, assigning letters to one direction and numbers to the other. By the end of this video, you'll have a well-organized and fully labeled axis system, ready for modeling your steel structure. Today, I'll be modeling an industrial-type steel building. Along one axis, we'll have 5 equal spans designed as a concentrically braced frame system. Along the other axis, we'll design moment-resisting frames. Since I also want to show examples of both portal frames and truss systems, we'll model a structure with wide spans in the X direction. Let's begin the modeling with the axis command under the Steel tab. When I hover over the axis icon, you'll notice the software highlights it with a different color to indicate it's active. Once I click it, you'll see a drop-down menu appear where the current axis mode is shown and an offset distance of 100 centimeters is set by default. This is where you define the spacing between axes. I'll explain the use of the offset in a moment. If we move to the far right, you'll see the settings section. After clicking on it, a new dialog opens, and on the left-hand side, there are several tabs: General, Label, Info Text, and Units. In the General tab, you can set the axis name and enter the left and right delta values, which control how far the axis extends in the plan view. You can also modify the line color and line type here. Switching to the Label tab, you can customize the label's text height, width, color, and whether the label should appear horizontal or vertical. Under the Units tab, as you may recall, I selected the metric system when opening this project. That's why I'm currently entering axis values in centimeters. However, you can switch to the imperial system with a single click if needed. I'll switch back to centimeters. You can also adjust settings like digit precision and rounding behavior here. Back to the General tab, I'll now click OK to apply the settings. Let's take a quick look at the offset command. I first select the origin point, 0, 0. Each grid step in the current plan is 200 centimeters based on the default settings. When I click once using the offset command, it places an axis based on the offset value shown in the drop-down. Now I'll go back into the axis command and manually change the offset distance to 500 centimeters. Once I place the first axis, the software continues using that same offset for the remaining axes unless you modify it. Let me clear the screen quickly and start over. I'm now entering the axis from the coordinate box, which you can see in the perspective view. I've placed the first point at 0, 0. From here, there are a few things we need to keep in mind. One of the most important shortcuts is the spacebar. Right now, the axis is being entered in the X direction. If I press spacebar once, it switches to the Y direction, vertical. Pressing it again enables 2-point axis placement, free angle mode. Pressing again returns to horizontal mode. You can cycle through these modes with each press. Let's start with the Y direction. As I mentioned earlier, I'll place 5 axes at 5-meter intervals. For that, I'll use one of the fast modeling tools, the array command, located in the left vertical toolbar. I click on it, and a dialog opens. Here, it asks how many axes you want to create. I enter 5. Since the axes are in the Y direction, I set X spacing to 0 and Y spacing to 500 centimeters, 5 meters. By the way, even while you're inside a command, you can change the input units. For instance, although I entered 500 centimeters, I can switch to meters by right-clicking and choosing the appropriate unit. I've now switched back to centimeters. The array dialog also asks what type of array you want to use. I'm doing a consecutive layout, and since I'm working in plan view, there's no need to activate a separate working plane. But if you were modeling in a different view, you could select the appropriate workspace using the checkbox below. I click OK, and the 5 vertical axes are now placed. Now let's move on to the X direction. I open the axis command again, and it's still showing horizontal. I press spacebar once to make it vertical, then place the first axis at 0, 0. I'll now select this axis and use the clone command, located just above array in the left-hand toolbar. When I click clone, the command line at the bottom will guide you step by step. It asks for a base point. I select it. A blue field appears on screen to input the distance. You can also press Tab to switch between angle and distance inputs. Since I want to show both portal frame and truss system examples, I'll enter a span of 16 meters, which is 1,600 centimeters. Then I add another span. Let's make it 6 meters, 600 centimeters. Now, as you can see, the plan is starting to look a bit cluttered. When entering geometry, it helps to tidy up the workspace for better visibility. There's a helpful feature for this. If you go back to the axis section, you'll see a small arrow next to the icon. Clicking it opens a drop-down menu, where you'll find contour lines and calculate contour options. The Calculate Contour tool is useful if you've already modeled structural elements, like steel columns. In that case, the software can automatically calculate the boundary limits. But since we haven't added any elements yet, I'll instead enable contour lines manually. This helps me keep the drawing organized within the defined frame. Lastly, let me zoom in and point out something important. Since I used the clone command, the axis labels are currently repetitive. Proper axis naming is essential. There's a tool for automatic labeling in the vertical toolbar. I'll select all the axes by drawing a selection box from top to bottom and left to right, then right-click to open the labeling options. Let's say I want to name columns starting with C1 in the major direction. For axes, you can choose to start one direction with letters A, B, C, and the other with numbers 1, 2, 3. I click OK, and the axes are now automatically labeled. As you can see, the axes in the X direction are labeled A, B, C, while those in the Y direction are labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just as expected. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and explore the knowledge base for more tips. See you in the following video.